Hello and welcome to another edition of Chiefsman's Corner. I'm your host, Coach Winuvas of the UTEP Miners and VCFA. A couple of interesting things to report as we go into this particular podcast. Found out over the last week, since the last podcast, that YouTube has changed how they do clips. So the problem that I'm going to have is the question I asked of the VCFA community last week was, help me out, send me clips, send me questions on Ask the Chief. Unfortunately, due to the way YouTube has done things, and that's what we use as our recording medium, we can't really do clips easily. So that being said, we're not gonna try and do clips unless you guys, if you want to do a clip, do be aware it's a little bit of a pain in the ass. I went through and essentially had to go post game, go through, turn off my YouTube stream, and either do one of two things: either record it offline on my PS5 and then upload it to YouTube, which you can do, or record it as a separate broadcast on YouTube while you're on there. Either way, you still have to be in the game to do it. It's a little bit of a pain. I actually did the second way and just thought of the first way while I was sitting here recording. So you can do a recording to your, if you've never done it before, you can record to your PlayStation 5, and then once it's done, you actually go into your media section on your PS5, so outside of the game, you find that particular file and you simply upload it to YouTube. You rename the clip, or you rename the file, the video file. It will upload from your PS5 to YouTube or to Twitch, depending on what streaming service you use. And then from there, you could send it to me. So we still potentially could do a clip show. Just it is one of those things that it does require a little bit of extra work. Unlike the old way of clipping clips out of YouTube, where you could just watch the video, find the point where you're at, clip it, and then send me the clip. Unfortunately, again, YouTube doesn't do clips for whatever reason. I don't know why. But so this week, to kind of put a damper on it, we won't have any clips to show. But I wanted to still do a show because we are nearing the end of season 15, season 1 in college football 27. And I wanted to at least put out some content for the community, for the dynasty, as we get closer to bowl season. Because as of this recording, we just got to week 13, and I will be doing week 10 and 11 highlights, so I'm a little bit behind schedule. But we will be going over the highlights, and I've gotten some AI help in generating some images that kind of look like ESPN style broadcasts. So what we'll do is we'll do week 10 highlights. I'll come back on camera to talk a little bit about week 10, and then kind of intro week 11. We'll do week 11 highlights, and then for after that we will kind of round out the show, because again, we didn't have any Ask the Chief questions posted this week. I'm kind of hoping that guys buy into that more as we get going. Ask some questions about the dynasty, ask some questions about leadership in general, find out what we're thinking from a rules and slider standpoint. I might do a little bit of talking about that as we round out the end of the show. But without further ado, we're going to move on to week 10 highlights. And your first highlight comes to us courtesy of La Migra and the UNLV Running Revs. They unfortunately in week 10 lose to the Wyoming Cowboys 19-9 is your final. You can see all the stats, pertinent stats up there. Chase Royer had a terrible game. Jaden Thomas, running back, 17 carries for 65 yards. Tayshawn Lyons, 5 receptions, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively, you had Blessing Alualu Tuioi Motu, and yeah, I know I butchered that. 10 tackles with a tackle for loss, and Avery Helm at the cornerback position did get an interception return for 34 yards, and I believe caused a safety in that game to get the score at 19-9. Unfortunately, UNLV falls in that game. And we move on to UTSA versus Florida Atlantic, and Coach Kendro has the Road Runners, for lack of a better description, he has them running. 26-23 is your final. Owen McCown, senior quarterback, leading the crew here. 26 of 41, 299 yards, and a touchdown to go with, more importantly, no interceptions. That's been the problem in UTEP lately. We'll get to them shortly. Will Henderson, the third, 19 carries, 53 yards, and a touchdown. Looking at the season stats, the rushing game has been tough to come by, but the passing game, which is not a terrible shock. Kendra was always really good in the passing game. In WFL, he's shown the propensity for it here as well. Jamel Hardy, 7 catches for 119 yards, and Miles Campbell, 2 catches, 25 yards, but more importantly, a touchdown on the game. You see the yardage there as far as offense goes for both teams. We'll move on to a heartbreaker, unfortunately, for ECU as they fall to the USF Bulls. 41-38 is your final. This was one that I think Coach Cly really wanted. And it was an undefeated team at the time, USF. So this is a team you knock them off. You kind of get some national prominence. You knock off a group of 6 team. Unfortunately, even though they scored 28 points in the third to make a comeback, it wasn't quite enough as USF finishes them off 41-38. Mitch Griffiths for the Pirates goes 20 of 27, 275, and 3 touchdowns. Ashton Gray, only 8 carries for 50 yards, but again, East Carolina was down big in the fourth. They had to throw to come back. Brock Spalding and Kanan Hamlet were your leaders there. We had a total of 13 receptions, a total of 192 yards receiving, and 3 touchdowns to lead the Pirates to an almost comeback against the USF Bulls. As we move right along, Toledo squeaks past Sacramento State, and the Hornets fall 20-17 is your final here. Isaiah Scruggs, 20 of 29, 258 yards, a touchdown and a pick on the day. Sincere Rainey, 13 carries, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Matthew Coleman and Jordan Williams did the heavy lifting in the receiving game. Coleman had 7 catches for 126, while Williams had 5 catches for 43 yards and a touchdown on the day. Bugsy Silvera at tight end, at edge had 11 tackles. That's what I get for looking at AI. Defensive tackle Will Weber had 4 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack in the 3-point defeat. We move on to a humbling of Rutgers by Wisconsin, 31-13. Unfortunately, the story of this game is turnovers. Dylan Lonergan, 22 of 54, 298 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 picks on the day. Antoine Raven had 17 carries for 80 yards. Vernon Allen III had 10 receptions for 151 yards. And KJ Duff had 5 for 85 and a touchdown on the day. Defensively, Ty Morris had 8 tackles and 3 tackles for loss. And Rondarius Porter had 6 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. Unfortunately, it was not enough. Defense kept fighting. Offense kept fighting. The only problem is turnovers. They'll always kill you. We move on to Oklahoma State and Kansas State. And Kansas State goes down by 10 to the Cowboys. 45-35 is your final here. Avery Johnson goes 22 of 41 for 322, 5 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Joe Jackson had 6 carries for 19 yards, which is not terribly impressive. 4 receptions for 59 yards is, however, Isaiah Williams, 5 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown. Josh Manning, 4 receptions, 58 yards and 2 touchdowns. And defensively, Coy Beasley had 13 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. As we move on to Maryland and Purdue, Maryland squeaks out the 3-point win against Purdue. 24-21 is your final. Malik Washington has been balling lately. 22 of 32, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. DeJuan Williams, 9 carries for 30 yards. Not that impressive. 5 receptions for 45 yards is, though. Chris Durr Jr. and Dorian Fleming do some more heavy lifting in the receiving game with a total of 8 receptions for 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Daniel Wingate was your defensive leader with 9 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. Moving right along, the game that UTEP wants to forget. UTEP loses 44-8. Hawaii came in and just dominated. This was a game that, some insider information, UTEP had 3 recruits visiting, and luckily one of them actually bothered to verbally commit. I'm surprised that he actually did after that game. He was a quarterback. Maybe that's why he committed, because UTEP looked awful all day long. They had no answers. They got beat down. E.J. Colson, 11 of 24, 157 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. DeVoris Jones, 10 carries for 24 yards and 1 catch for 9 yards. The run game was just non-existent. Carver Cheeks had 4 receptions for 79 yards and a touchdown to lead the receiving crew. Xavier Smith had 12 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. And when your free safety is your tackle leader, that's never a good sign. I will say, though, defensive edge Sterling Miles did make an impact. 4 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks, albeit in a supreme losing effort for the UTEP Miners. Again, 44-8, your final there against Hawaii. Boise State scrapes a 7-point win against Colorado State in Week 10, 27-20, your final here. Maddox Basson, 22 of 34, 269 with 2 touchdowns and a pick on the day. Dylan Riley, 19 carries for 87 yards and a touchdown. Cameron Bates, 6 catches, 38 yards, and a touchdown. Defensively, you had Jaden Virgin Morgan with 2.5 sacks, and Roman Kaywood with 2 sacks from their edge spots, a total of 7 tackles between them, and 6 of those tackles were for loss. Mostly sacks. They were in the backfield all day long against the Colorado State Rams, and it shows in a 7-point victory for Boise State. And we move on to the final game of Week 10, and I made it the final one because it was a simulated game. Studley's been out of town the last couple of game weeks, so we've had to simulate his games. But luckily, his simulation has been going quite well because Georgia Southern wins in overtime against Marshall, 39-37 your final here. Again, no stats from this game because it was a simulated game, but do note that at halftime, Marshall was up 24-0, and in the fourth quarter, Georgia Southern scored 19 points to bring it to overtime, and then overcome in overtime 39-37. And as I come back on screen for you, you can see Week 10. That's the kind of the way we're going to do these recap shows, or try to, is essentially have some graphics that basically show the scores. Hopefully, we'll be able to get AI to generate them properly. It took me quite a bit to get them to generate this past week, but AI has been quite a help for this. So if you're wondering where those images came from, I promise you they came from AI. We're going to move on to Week 11 here in just a bit, but I just wanted to make sure I touch base and let you know that we do have an incentive plan in the VCFA. Anytime you're chatting in chat, anytime you do something in the VCFA, you do get some sort of benefit from the VCFA in the form of experience points in chat. You get enough experience points, you build up enough levels, you can actually get some bonus ORP and bonus attribute points you can spend towards players that are eligible. Again, they have to be eligible players, which means we have to be able to edit them. So do be aware of that. And as we move forward in the Dynasty, more and more players will be able to be edited. So it will benefit you more and more to join our incentive plan. And like I said, anytime you chat and chat, anytime you do sort of recaps, anything of that nature, at the end of the season, I will basically tally all that up, give you your points, XP, and chat. You hit enough chat levels, you basically graduate from walk-on, which is what everybody starts as, to freshman, to All-American, to Heisman. And each one of those tiers gets you more points, more things that benefit you, that are just little extras to say thank you for basically providing content and entertainment to the league. So I just want to let you know that before we go on to Week 11 highlights, and we start with Charlotte whooping up on East Carolina. As close as East Carolina made their last game in Week 10, they did not do that, unfortunately, in this matchup. They go down 31-3 is the final here. Mitch Griffiths did not have a great game. 16-32, 191 yards and an interception. I do believe he got benched at one point. Landon Sides, 4 receptions for 65 yards. The only thing to say good about the receiving core or the running back room. DJ Johnson Jr. on defense, 13 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and half a sack to lead that team, unfortunately, in just a rough effort against the Charlotte Miners. Nebraska and Rutgers, and this is one I was actually really happy about because Rusta has had himself a tough season to start. He took over Rutgers in the Big Ten. That's a tough team to take over and come in as a starting point. They're going to be at the bottom of the Big Ten, and he's been struggling with adjusting to the game a little bit, I think. He's been playing in WFL. I don't know if he played much college last year. If he had, then I'm sorry, Rust. I'm not trying to throw shade on you a little bit, but I was really happy to see you win this one, 25-20. The final against Nebraska held Nebraska to field goals. When you hold a team to field goals and you score touchdowns, good things can happen. Dylan Lonergan, 15-26, 143 yards and 1 touchdown. It's not an impressive stat line, but it's enough to get the W, and that's all you need. Antoine Raymond had himself a ball game, 29 carries, $169 on the ground, rushing touchdown as well. KJ Duff had 3 receptions for 38 yards and a touchdown. The passing game, again, wasn't great. The running game stabilized everything. You chew that clock up, you eat that clock, you get those points, and you can basically shorten that game, shorten the offensive possession for the other team, and you can make some wins happen. Kaj Sanders at safety, 12 tackles and 2 tackles for loss in the winning effort for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights as they beat Nebraska 25-20. Next on the docket, Central Michigan versus Sacramento State. Unfortunately, Sacramento State falls 42-34 is the final here. Isaiah Scruggs, 22 of 34, 216 yards, a touchdown and a pick on the day. Sincere Rainey, 9 carries, 61 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tight end Jordan Williams had himself a ball game in the receiving game. 11 receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown. And Bugsy Silvera and Elias Mulliken were the guys I wanted to single out on defense for the Hornets, as Bugsy Silvera had 12 tackles with 2 tackles for loss, and Elias Mulliken had 9 tackles and interception that he took back 27 yards. Unfortunately, when your safeties and your corners are leading your team in tackles, that's probably generally your defense did not have a good game. You can see the fourth quarter had a massive scoring spike. 27 points for Sacramento State, 22 for Central Michigan, but unfortunately that scoring spurt was not enough as the Hornets fall by 8 to the Chippewas of Central Michigan. Moving on, this was kind of a heartbreaker loss. UTEP against Hawaii last week was a blowout. In week 11, it was just, we could not get it done. E.J. Colson, 23 of 37, 265 yards and a passing touchdown. Tavoris Jones, 10 carries, 67 yards and a touchdown as well. Jaden Smith had 7 catches for 90 yards. He's a senior. We're going to miss him a lot. Jalen Brown, 5 catches, 50 yards and a touchdown. And on defense, again, like I said with Sacramento State, when your safety is leading the team in tackles, that's never a good sign. Cody Lowe had 12 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and 2 pass deflections in the 6-point loss. We move on. Maryland, again, I told you that Malik Washington was having a ball game. Now, unfortunately, in this game, he didn't show very much, but he did show it with his legs. He did run a lot in this game. 36-20, your final here against Wisconsin, as Maryland wins it going away. Malik Washington, 18 of 26 and 111 passing yards. Zymir Smith, 8 carries, 136 yards and 2 touchdowns. DeJuan Williams, 17 carries, 87 yards and a touchdown as well. On defense, Amari Jackson had 9 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and an interception. And as a whole, the team ground game was the reason this team won. 34 carries as a team, 270 yards, and 3 total touchdowns. When you have a game like that on the ground, it's hard to lose a football game. And the Terrapins have been winning a lot lately. Spoilers for next session if I do week 12 games. Malik Washington had a game against USC. We'll just leave it at that. As we move on to Boise State and Oregon State. Boise State squeaks one out, 42 to 38 is your final here. Maddox Madison, 25 of 41 for 421, 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. Be careful. Dylan Riley, 14 carries for 414 yards and a touchdown. Ben Ford, 7 receptions, 142 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was a monster that could not be stopped. And on defense, or on another offensive player, Dylan Riley, 4 receptions, 103 yards. Big play threat. Jake Ripp, 10 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and half a sack on the defensive side of the ball. Definitely a back-and-forth game, but Boise State got to win those games if you want to be important in the college football rankings. And this is a big one to win in the Pac-12. Move on. Oops, wrong game. Let's go back. Sorry about that. TCU and Kansas State. 43-22 your final here. Kansas State falls. 21-point first quarter is awful hard to overcome. 30-point first half is really hard to overcome. Kansas State, did the best they could in the second half, but when you start behind the 8 ball 30-0, it's very hard to come back. Avery Johnson, 16 of 45, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He also ran the ball 10 times for 136 yards. Oakley had 3 catches for 56 yards. Adonis Moyes had 2 receptions for 21 yards and a touchdown. And on defense, Caleb Patterson, 9 tackles, 1 interception, which he returned 26 yards, albeit in the loss. Now let's move on. New Mexico, UNLV, and this is one that Coach LeVeager would like to forget. He loses 43-14 to the Lobos, I believe, in New Mexico. Jackson Arnold, the transfer in from, I believe, Auburn. 20 of 34, 314 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Jaden Thomas did not have a good day on the ground. 15 carries, only 51 yards. Tayshawn Lyons, though, had him a ball game in the receiving game. 6 receptions, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. New Mexico did not have many answers for him, and he was the only one that scored any points. And on defense, Trey Fulton, 7 tackles, and 1 interception on the day. The penultimate game is UTSA and North Texas, and UTSA pulls out a 5-point victory over North Texas. 31-26 is the final. Owen McCown, 24 of 35, 267, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Will Henderson, the third, 16 carries for 79 yards. A.J. Wilson, 4 for 66 and a touchdown. And also John Hardy, 5 receptions for 58 yards, kind of anchor that side and give A.J. Wilson some freedom to do what he does best. And on defense, Nate Robinson Jr. had 8 tackles to lead the Roadrunners in their victory against the Mean Green, I believe, from North Texas. And then finally, just like last week, because again, Coach Studley has been out this past couple of weeks. He's back now. We're glad he's back. Just joined us, and then he had to go right on vacation, or not on vacation, had to go on a work trip. 35-30 is the final as Georgia Southern pulls it out over Georgia State. So he's 2-0 without playing. That's always a good thing. No stats to recite off of this one, but a good game for Studley as he gets 2 wins, one against a vicious rival in Georgia State. So that's good to see as he comes back in and plays some more in weeks 12 and 13, which is the week we are currently on as I come back on camera. I just want to kind of round this out by saying those were the highlights. The recap of weeks 10 and 11 in VCFA. Next week, I'm hoping to do weeks 12 and 13, and maybe, depending on how far we get, maybe a bowl game, depending on who's playing bowl week 1. I may just make it just the end of season stuff, and we'll just round up the bowl games into a separate podcast. I'm not sure. It's kind of a format that's growing as we play along because I'm not used to getting 3 advances in a week. Whenever we did Madden, I'd barely have 2, so it'd be easy to get scores together. Whenever we're having 3 advances a week, it's a little bit tougher, but I'm going to try and keep up, do the best I can to keep up. This podcast was delayed a day due to the fact that, and it's still bright sunshiny out where I'm at, but it's finally kind of come down a little bit. The clouds have kind of come in a little bit, so I can record a little earlier today than anticipated. But we will shoot this up, and again next week we'll get this going. We'll keep this rolling, and until next time, I'm hoping I hit this right. The corner is closed. See, I wasn't going to hit it right, was I? Well, we'll do it the manual way.